Welcome back, everyone. Before we end this section, I just want to give some thoughts on higher education, things like a graduate degree, such as a master's or a PhD, and how that may help in your job search and what that really means for your job search as a data scientist. So this is a really common question that I get from students a lot. Do I need to get a master's or a PhD to pursue data science? And a lot of what is about to follow, it's really just my personal opinions, and you're going to need to take the time to reflect on your specific situation and maybe the specific company that you're applying to. So take that into consideration as you listen to what I have to say. In my personal opinion, it's going to be harder to get a job in a position with formal requirements like machine learning engineer without an advanced degree in a larger company. And often, recruiters at these larger companies like Facebook or Google, they're going to be given requirements for candidates to actually have either a master's or a PhD, and they're just not going to be really allowed to consider you if you don't have those graduate degrees, unless you've done something absolutely phenomenal, like you've created your own deep learning library that has a lot of users. Now, if you plan to go more of an entrepreneurial route, such as freelancing, graduate degrees become less important. At that point, it really matters what you've done and your portfolio of projects that you can show for it. So no one's really going to care if you have a PhD, if you're just freelancing and you've already have a portfolio of satisfied customers and different projects you can show off. Now, keep in mind, each individual situation is different. Many entrepreneurs come from graduate degree backgrounds, and some employees at large companies that do work as machine learning engineers, for example, don't actually have graduate degrees. So it's a spectrum. There's definitely different cases for each situation. So I want to take a look at just two extremes on this spectrum of higher education so you can get an idea of what's actually in the real world out there. Now keep in mind, most people are going to be somewhere in between these two real life examples. I'm going to give examples of two people kind of on the extremes of the spectrum, but again, most people are going to be somewhere in between. Okay, so let's first look at Ian Goodfellow. I would say he's on the extreme spectrum of getting higher education. So he has a bachelor's and master's in computer science from Stanford University, and then continued on to get a PhD in machine learning. He's a co-author on a book on deep learning. And more importantly, he's one of the creators of generative adversarial networks, which is a very popular and very trending type of neural network in the deep learning space that allows you to basically generate examples of data. Now, Ian Goodfellow here, he used to work at Google, then he moved on to OpenAI, and I believe now he's actually back at Google. As you can imagine, someone of his skill set and his technical knowledge is in really high demand, so by the time you're listening to this, maybe he works somewhere else. But this would be an example of someone who's gone the graduate degree route, and it's worked out very well for him. And it also allowed him opportunities to work with a lot of other talented people in some of the labs he was working in, as well as getting an opportunity to co-author a book on deep learning. So that's one end of the spectrum of how pursuing a graduate degree can really help you on your path to becoming a data scientist, or in this case, an expert in machine learning. But let's go ahead and take a look at someone on the opposite side of the spectrum, and that would be Adam Gibson, who is actually a college dropout, and yet he is the creator of a library called Deep Learning 4J, which is a deep learning library for Java. He's also the co-founder of a Y Combinator-backed company called SkyMind. So this is someone without any sort of graduate degree. In fact, total college dropout. I believe he only did his first 2 years in undergrad. So again, other opposite end of the spectrum, and he took a much more entrepreneurial type route where he's actually creating his own libraries, has a good portfolio, and is actually able to start his own company. Now, I should mention he dropped out of college to start his company. That doesn't mean I'm giving the advice of everyone drop out of college and start your own machine learning company, but keep in mind it is definitely possible to become a renowned data scientist or entrepreneur without the background of graduate degrees. So again, two ends of the spectrum here. Most people are not going to be at one of these extremes. They're going to be somewhere in the middle. So I just want to give two real life examples of people who have done it one way or the other. So make sure you understand that the topics involved with data science are complex and they're not easy to learn. There's really no wrong or right path to becoming a data scientist, and you should really create your own path on your career journey. Okay, thanks everyone, and I'll see you at the next lecture.